Hey gang, Mark here for our next off-season show, and it's the turn of Cass Tigers. Who else could we get on from Cass's fan base other than Fatboy Rob himself to look back at 2018 and look ahead to 2019? In between, we got Yorkshire Post Peter Smith back on the phone to cover off the limited off-season movement so far for Castleford. Take it away, guys. Okay, so it's time to talk about Castleford, and that means one thing really. It's time to get Listener of the Year, Rob Ordish, onto the show. So, Rob, welcome on board.
Thank you very much for having me.
How have you been celebrating, before we get on to Castleford season, how have you been celebrating your season? Triumphant Listener of the Year award in a surprise turnaround result.
Pretty much the same as when Cass won the league the season before last, when I opened top bus around Castleford. I'd like to thank the thousands, if not millions, of people that voted for me. I'm very, very touched. I'm waiting for my trophy. It is a trophy, is it, Mark? Is it?
There's no room in the budget for trophies. I have been down to Redall to see if they had any silver salvers not around.
What about prize money?
It just have to do with our applause and celebration and that the fact that it was well deserved.
I was very pleased, and I will admit I did give a little cheer out when I listened to the podcast, and Vicky, my other half, she really didn't understand it at all, but it meant a lot to me. So thank you everybody that did vote for me.
No, that's great. And so like we've been doing with these shows, we're going to start with my pre-season prediction and then what actually happened. And Castleford were one of the teams I got right, which is exciting for me because it means I maybe know something. I predicted that Cass would finish third in the league, although I did predict that Cass would win the cup. Cass did finish third in the league, but didn't win the cup, didn't win a game in the cup. But, 1 for 2, not bad going at all. And then, Rob, in terms of your fellow fans, Castleford was one of the sides when we did the season review polls that we got a few people commenting on. So there's some good views as well for you to get your teeth into as well as your own. We start with our friend who lives over in America, DG Knight. He said, pretty good considering key position issues through injury and a certain vacancy at fullback for much of the season. Good to be back in the top 4, but a bit inconsistent this year and will have to lift significantly to win the competition. Simon Lees said, with the injuries, especially to Gale, for so long, great to see Truman step up and show his potential. McShane being class all year, with the injuries still to finish third. Adam Conley, he said, a solid season despite the adversity going under the radar for most of it. Some flashes of brilliance, yet moments of bang average. If you'd have said we'd have finished third at the beginning of the season, I'd have taken it. The emergence of Truman is a massive positive. A bit more luck and some consistency, and I expect us to be challenging at the top of the table again next season. And then Paul Burns-Williamson, who is a new name on me, he just said, must do better. So a range of views there, Rob. Where do you sit on your 2018 season?
Somewhere between Paul, the last one, and Simon Lees. I think finishing third was an outstanding result considering the amount of injuries. The fact that we didn't bother us asked to sign a fullback for virtually the full season was a big mistake, and I think it showed. But having been, I only missed one game last season, which was Catalan away, and it's surprising. If you just watch those games, you'd never have thought that we finished third. But we did have some good wins. We did have some good wins in amongst, but we did have some bang average performances as well. So all in all, I'd say a B+.
Right, okay. Well, round one, I mean, we start there, don't we, with Cass's 2018. It was a big loss in round one, and already some questions started to come up about the number 1 shirt and the number 6 shirt, really. Did you have the right players in the right positions in those times? You basically got spanked, didn't you, by St. Helens. Was there any worry from your perspective, or were you still flying high from the League Leaders Shield win the year before?
Well, being champions and losing that first game was disappointing, I will say. I mean, you can't panic, can you, after one game? But they did tonk us. In fact, they tonked us 3 times last season. Every time, or 4 times even. Every time they played us, they hammered us. St. Helens. We just don't know how to play against them. Maybe it'll be different next season when Barber's gone. But that game, nothing went right for us. I think Barber put Greg Eden in touch for about 6 yards out quite early on, and after it just got worse from there. But it was a good performance by Saints, and they showed how well they played for the rest of the season. But certainly weren't the cast that we were used to. I don't think the fullback was anything to do with it. I just think it was the entire team. In fact, I can remember saying we didn't look fit. We did not look fit at all. And I don't know if that's because of the crappy winter we had in terms of getting players out training. But for the first few games of the season, we didn't look fit. The week after, we scraped past Widnes by a point, and we didn't look fit then either.
Yeah, well, you did, but that Widnes game did start a winning run. You won 5 in a row during what I guess is pretty fair to say was a difficult winter and early spring for the ground staff. But that did get cast back into the top 400 before that ridiculous game against Warrington that handed you your first home defeat when the weather said it should never have been played, really. And that winning run, of course, included what you'll be delighting with, which was a narrow win over Leeds at Ellen Road.
Yeah, well, pretty good that. We absolutely battered them first half, and Luke Gale got a drop goal on that just on the half-time move, to which we've done that a few times. I think at the time we didn't realise how shit Leeds was, so it felt better than it probably was. But just to beat them in front of such a big crowd as well, I'm not sure. I think it just fell short of the record crowd, didn't it?
It did, didn't it? Yeah.
But it was a great atmosphere. And the second half, I think we deserved it overall. But it were a little bit nail biting in the second half. But beating Leeds is beating Leeds, isn't it?
And then, like you were pretty consistent in a weird way for the rest of the season. You'd win 2, then lose 1, then win 2, then lose 1, almost all the way through the rest of the year until the very back end. But in that sort of period during the regular season, there was the huge win over Leeds at the Magic weekend. There was also a really good narrow away win at Warrington Wolves, and they were kind of results that had you guys pegged for the top 4, so it put you in a strong position in that top 4 race. Were you confident maybe at that stage that Cass could go a little bit further in the playoffs part of the season?
Honestly, no, because we were playing Wigan at your place. We had a narrow defeat against you in the Super 8s, and I know I've whinged on about the refereeing performance on that day, but the fact of the matter is you absolutely spanked us in the first half, and then it was very similar to the Leeds game. You spanked us in the first half, we came back and almost snatched it, but I think it was just that little bit of a big game freezing. You can't take anything away from Wigan. The way you defended was absolutely brilliant. One thing about that playoff game that does make me chuckle is to listen to people on social media. You'd think that Wigan spanked us, but you only beat us 14 nil, only 2 tries.
Yeah. But it feels a little bit strange. Like we beat you. Wigan beat Castleford twice at the DW this year, and both times, like, it felt as a Wigan fan like we absolutely hammered you. We won the first one by 16 points, and we won that last one by 14 points, like you say. I think. Did you think that maybe you let Wigan control you in those games, even if the scoreline didn't get stupidly out of hand like it maybe did against Saints?
I just think that Wigan did what Wigan. I mean, to be fair, Wigan won the grand final, didn't they? By scoring 4 tries and not conceding many. I think we could still be playing now, and we'd probably still be on nil. I just think you had absolutely. I think you had. I mean, it didn't help that Truman didn't play against Wigan, obviously, but I just think that you had us under control. You knew exactly what we were going to do when we did it. I think you beat us 3 times, at the DW in the league.
Yeah, we did. There was the narrow win in the Super 8s as well. That was the one of the 2. Actually, I mean, let's not to make it too much about like Wigan, but Wigan and Cass had a couple of really good close battles that could have gone either way in the middle of it. And in a way, do you think that kind of sums up Cass's season this year? That they were really good, but not quite at the same, like you say, falling short at those big moments. And maybe.
I think if you look at Cass's results and you sum the season, Cass had an excellent season against everybody apart from Wigan and Saints.
Yeah.
I think you beat us 3 times. I think Saints beat us 3 times. And other than that, I'm struggling.
And in the cup as well, Saints.
Yeah, Saints Hamilton, the cup.
Yeah.
And other than that, the Warrington, they beat us in the game it should never have been played. But other than those Wigan and Saints beating us, I'm struggling to think who did beat us.
Well, you lost a game to Hull FC quite heavily.
Oh, at their place, yeah.
In the middle of the season. And when Catalan were sort of building up their form towards the Challenge Cup semi-finals and final, they knocked you off as well, and Huddersfield secured their safety by knocking you off. But you're right, you beat everyone apart from St Helens this season. So
yep.
Clearly that's a really good season, isn't it, for Castleford fans?
Yeah, just a quick comment on the Huddersfield. Huddersfield may have beaten us, but to be fair, we threw that game, so Leeds finished in the bottom four. Just let's just get that on the record. That's the only reason.
So looking back over the season overall, like you said, it kind of was a good season. In when you look really in the spectrum of things for Castleford, who were your standout performers for you, seeing as you saw so many of the games?
So Greg Eden was a massive help to us when he came back. Paul McShane was the player of the season by a mile. Truman, he did play well, especially when you consider the amount of pressure that must have been on him, because he would have expected to be a sort of a bit player or possibly play one, miss two, but he's had to play the full season, and out
of position as well earlier on when he was put in at fullback.
He played very well at fullback. He did okay at fullback. I think the squad in general has impressed me, because we had massive injuries last season. That win at Warrington, I think we had 11 or 12 players out that could have played.
Definitely. After Magic Weekend, it felt like there was 2 players going down every game, didn't it?
Alex Foster, when you consider that we signed him as a backup, and we didn't have a contract, and he was a massive miss. I think Liam Watts has done okay since he's come back in. I'm wondering whether he's lost a little bit because he's trying to keep his temper under control, but he certainly never let us down, and I'm hoping his second season he'll be back to his how good he was at Hull. But he was certainly a good signing. But I mean, realistically, player of the year, Paul McShane. It's so unfortunate for him that he's got other hookers in front of him for England, and I don't disagree with Roby and Hodgson being in the England side, but it's just it's so unfortunate for him that he's in the same sort of era as those two, because I think any other time it'd be England hooker. He's such a clever player, and he defends really well as well, and he's got good, his kicking games come on massive.
Yeah, one of the top tacklers, wasn't he, in Super League? So. Yeah.
I think he might have been the top tackler in Super League. I think he might have won the award at the end of the season. Milner has obviously improved massively. Ollie Holmes has improved. It's a bit, he's going to be a bit of a miss at the beginning of the season. And the fact is, if we can get rid of those injuries, then we should have a good season next year.
And so before we'll talk about next year in a little while.
I'm jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead of me, Rob. What I want you to do then, just to sum up 2018, is what was your highlight moment of 2018 as a Castleford fan?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Magic Weekend. Stuffing Leeds yet again. Although beating them by a point was pretty good as well. And then, secondly, I would say that win at Warrington, because we all went across. There were a big cast following that day as well. I mean, there always is, but to get that win, I think the unexpected wins are sometimes the best.
Yeah.
So beating Leeds and unexpectedly beating Warrington.
Brilliant. So another good season for Castleford in 2018 wrapped up there by you, Rob. Thanks.
Cool.
Okay, we've got Peter Smith from the Yorkshire Evening Post to talk about the off-season going-ons at Castleford Tigers now. So, Peter, there's been lots of outs and not so many ins at Castleford. So I'll just run through the names, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit about what's gone on or what